That's what I do. Okay? Now look, this is easier to do than you might think, because everybody competes in exactly the same way. I mean, they all do. I don't care if you're playing a game or running a business, everybody competes the same way. And I won't go into the details of it, but I will say this. Basically, people in business, and even, you know, in direct sales, people compete with price and product. That's how they compete. And I will guarantee you that if we put truth serum fumes throughout this room, we'd find a lot of people that are a little concerned about the price of your products, you know, and we'd find a few people that are a little concerned that we don't have this particular thing in our product. Let me tell you something. It don't matter. Because everybody competes with price and product. There's not a football coach in America who at some point during the season, from the NFL to the mini-mites, who at some point during the season doesn't say a version of this. Today I want everything you got. I want everything in you. I want your heart, your mind, your body. I need 100% of you. And I don't need 100% for the 3 hours we're in the stadium or for the 60 minutes on the clock. But 11, 12, 13 minutes total, 4, 5, 6 seconds at a time. From the moment the ball is snapped to the second that whistle is blown, if you can give me everything from the snap to the whistle, we got an opportunity to win this game. See, it sounds really good, but the problem is the coach on the other sideline said the same thing to his team. So everybody is given everything from the snap to the whistle. And if you are really better than them and you play every day, the best you could hope to do is beat them every time by a little bit. Because everybody's got to be good at the fundamentals. You got to know the fundamentals. You got to be good from the snap to the whistle. Well, let me tell you something. If you can figure out a way to legitimately compete, not just from the snap to the whistle, but from the whistle till the next snap, while everybody else is just standing around, you'll run them off the field. Right. And there is a way to do it in every business I have ever seen, with every sport I have ever worked with, from Ryder Cup to Solheim Cup to World Series teams to Super Bowl teams. There is a way to do that. And in business, it ain't price and product. The best huge success, the biggest huge success, the first huge success I had was with a real estate company. When I started understanding all these principles several years ago, and we took one, it was a national real estate company, we took one of their people, one of their states, right in the middle of their 49 brothers and sisters, right in the middle of their competition, worked with them for a year, and they increased their sales 400%. 400%. And I don't know anything about real estate. I'll tell you how we did it in just a minute. But what I want you to understand now is the way you compete in a way that the other people don't know a game is going on is with you. It's you. I don't care what industry you're in. Let everybody else talk about their industry and promote their price and their products. And you have to talk about them a little bit, but the real product, the real thing, I don't care what industry you're in, the real product is you. It's you. You are the difference maker. You are the reason people will get in or not get in. You are the reason people will seek you out. Let me just tell you something. You can create such value with who you are. People say, personal growth, we want to become, we want to grow personally, but nobody ever says, well, why? What do you mean growth? Okay, personal growth, Why? Well, it's not just that we want you to become somebody other people want to be around. I mean, you got to understand that, right? I mean, if we are not people other people want to be around, who is going to join us in our quest? Right? And if they get involved and find out we are not somebody they want to be around, who is going to stick with us on our quest? All right, so it's not just that, even though that is real. What I'm talking about is becoming the kind of person that everyone is drawn to. Listen, I promise you, if you have people in your life who will not listen to your business proposal, I hate to say this, but it's just a very simple fact. For whatever reason, there is not enough value in their life from you to them. Because I'm going to tell you something, if somebody is this person that, man, you changed my child's life. I cannot thank you enough. For the rest of my life, I will be grateful to you. You changed my child's life. You gave them that book. You insisted they read it. We have a different child now. All right, so tell me they're not going to sit down with you for 5 minutes. Are you kidding me? See, the crazy thing about this real estate deal is when I say I didn't know anything about real estate, I mean, I really don't know anything about real estate. I mean, in my adult life, I've lived in 3 places. I lived under a pier. I lived in a condo for 3 years when Polly and I got married. And in the house we live in now. We've lived in the house we live in now for 25 years. People say, don't you want to get another? No. Don't you want to get a bigger place? No. We're fine. You know, bigger house, just a longer walk to the bathroom. We're fine, okay? I don't know anything about real estate. And yet, I know what to look for, and I want to show you what to look for in human nature. And so as I'm sitting around with the leaders, I said, Joel, tell me how this works. And they said, what? I said, real estate. How you make money? And they said, well, you know, you sell it, you make money. You don't sell it, you don't make any money. It's pretty much all commission. And I said, oh, okay, well. So I see signs everywhere, so people are just out there just selling everything that's for sale. And they said, well, no, there's the listing thing. I said, what's that? And they said, well, you know, if you're going to sell your house, you choose a listing agent. You sign a contract with an agent who's they're the listing agent. They're the one that has the listing for the house. And any other agent can sell your house, but they have to go through that agent. And so that means that if that agent sells the house they have listed, they get 100% of the commission. But because they have it listed, if anybody else sells it, they still get 50% of the commission. I said, really? What? There's what we got to do. All we have to do is list all the houses. And they said, yeah, okay, well, that's easier said than done. Well, it is easier said, but it is easier done when you know how people list their houses. I mean, if you look at college football, I mean, you've heard the announcer say, those officials, they can call holding on any play they want to call it on. Okay, well, you better know who they are then. Because if it's that arbitrary, you better know who they are, because you want to act in a certain way when you're on the field, off the field, I don't care where you are. You want to act in a certain way that makes sure when they walk on that field, they like you. Because in the SEC, the average official is 56 years of age. They're overwhelmingly white collar. They're all male. They overwhelmingly have a teenager still at home. Overwhelmingly involved in youth leagues at home. I mean, you just go all through it. So, you know, what the 56-year-old white professional people, what do they like? What do they don't like? I'll tell you what they like. They like having the ball handed to them. They don't like tell you what they don't like to be called. They don't like to be called you. They don't like to be called stripes. They don't like to be called hey. But every one of them is involved in youth leagues at home. And all the kids in their hometown call him coach. So when we go out there, make sure you call him coach. Hey, coach. Thanks for being here, man. Hey, coach, who's the ball? How do we relate to them? Well, what is it there? I mean, they overwhelmingly watch games. They watch these games during the off season with commentary. Okay, so that means they know the little soap operas that are going on behind the scenes. And that means they watch these individual players. You know, in the games when they go, let's look at the Nittany Lions and these people, you know, the 5 guys of the line come up, their pictures, right? Let's look at the backfield. And they're watching this with their kids. Maybe 2 years before they go officiate a game. But I want to tell you something. In a national championship game with LSU and Alabama several years ago, when Alabama went the entire game without a single penalty until the last 2 minutes, and there was a movement penalty. You couldn't help but call it. The guy fired out from the line, right? The entire game, no penalties. You could back that up a couple of years and you could see, if you just take some 56-year-old white-collar guys and you say, what do they like, what do they don't like, and you can watch LSU for 2 years. Let's look at the LSU Bengal Tigers, and they're coming on the screen with T-shirts or jerseys with no pads, hats backwards, looking at the screen like this. Let's look at the Alabama Crimson Tide, and Alabama's coming up, and these 350-pound guys are in a coat and a tie looking at the camera. The guy's watching it with his teenager, overwhelmingly involved in youth leagues, overwhelmingly one teenager still at home. I mean, we could go through this forever. Well, with the real estate thing, how do people decide who they're going to list their house with? How do they decide? I mean, how do you decide? If you're going to list your house, what do? Do you get the computer and take the Tri-County area and the top 100 real estate people and run them through a program and come out with the top 10 and individually interview that top 10, then run them through the program again, come out with 3, individually interview the 3 again to choose the person who is going to list your house? No. That's not how you choose who's going to list your house. I'll tell you exactly who gets to list your house. It's your buddy who sells real estate. Really? Really? You're going to have him list your house? I am. So he's like the best in the area? No. But he's on a hot streak now, right? But you're going to let him list your house? Dude, I ain't got any choice. This is the guy, 3 years ago, this guy came over to my house at 2 o'clock in the morning and kept my kids. When I took my husband to the hospital, he got him up the next morning, made their lunches, took them to school. I ain't got any choice. I wouldn't dare list my house to anybody else. Oh, okay. So what you're telling me is that 3 years ago, at 2 o'clock in the morning, this guy was competing at a level that the other real estate people in the area didn't even know a game was going on. Now here's the thing. If you can understand how that happens inadvertently, you can make it happen on purpose. Andy, are you telling us to just do the right thing just so we'll get business? No. I'm telling you to get your eyes off yourself, get your mind off yourself, and look for ways to bless other people in your community. What I'm telling you is to do the right thing because it's the right thing. Now, I'm sorry that the way the world works is that when you do the right thing, you get blessings for it. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is, okay? And so, but I'm saying, do the right thing. Become important in the lives of other people. You say, become important. Like what, Andy? What? And see, people think that value in the lives of other people means dollars and cents. Are you kidding me? Do you remember Norm from Cheers? Remember Norm, that television show? You know, Norm was this big guy, didn't like his life. He had a wife named Vera. We never saw Vera, but he never had a good word to say about her, did he? Okay, he never had a good word to say about any job he ever had. And Norm was the guy who said, it's a dog-eat-dog world, and I'm wearing milk-bone underwear. That was Norm. And yet Norm he was at the end of that bar every single night. Why? Why that bar? Did that bar have any different kind of product than any other bar in Boston? Were the prices that much better? No. It was the one place in that poor guy's life that every time he walked through the door, everybody in there went, Norm! Norm! It's Norm! It's our Norm! Do you know what that's worth? You guys, there are people, in fact, I would say the vast majority of the people that you see every day in the lines at grocery stores, at the bank, waiting to pick up your children from school or taking them to school, at church, walking down. I mean, there are the vast majority of people you see every day. It has been years since any of them have gone anywhere and had anybody, and including their own home, and had anybody outwardly enthusiastic that they were there. You don't think you can add value to tons of people as you just navigate your daily life. Do you remember what it was like your first day in high school? Do you remember what it was like new school, or maybe you went to a new school? You remember what it was like the very first day that you're going down the cafeteria line and you're getting your food and you get to the end, get your milk, pay the lady, you turn around and there's that huge lunchroom of kids. And some of them look up at you and they look back down. And some of them look up at you and keep their eyes on you and whisper to somebody next to them. And then somebody over in the back corner kind of half stands up and waves around and goes, hey, hey. Remember that feeling? Thank you, God. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, God. Guys, if we feel like this, there are people that go into a new high school every day that are life in a way. And you ain't got to be an idiot about it. It's just that kind of that, hey, value on another human being. And when you compete that way, you'll be shocked at the people that will join you on your quest. And then, when you have wisdom as you become friends with them or find out anything about their kids, and you actually have something that you can help them with, your prospect pool will be endless. Hey, write this down. I'm going to tell you one more story, but before I do, write this down. This is a text number. I want to give you something. I know this doesn't sound like a text number, but 33444. That's a text number, 33444. And if you will text the word INSPIRE, INSPIRE. I've got a 5-day coaching thing that I'll give you. okay? And so it's free to you. And so if you'll text 33444 and put the word inspire in the message, it'll come back and ask where to download that to you. So that's just from me to you. I appreciate your leaders, and I have great respect for them, and I want to do that for you. The last proof that I want to get, and I hope by now you understand what I'm into. I'm into proof. You know, I'm not a motivational speaker. I don't like that. I'm not sure I even like them myself, okay? Because I'm more into proof than I am encouragement. I think encouragement comes when we learn something we didn't know before that we can harness that is real. You know, I'm not necessarily into grabbing your emotions for a couple of days. You know, I want to do something that you can take and you can harness the rest of your life, and you don't ever have to see me again if you don't want to. I mean, I hope you want to, but if you don't want to, I still want to have done something that's more than just your emotional tide at the moment. The last proof that I want to give you is how much you matter. How much it matters that you become the kind of person that God created you to be, that you actually fulfill the potential that is within you. I want you to understand how much you matter. Have you heard of the butterfly effect? The butterfly effect is a doctoral thesis written in 1963 by Edward Lorenz, and it was delivered to the New York Academy of Sciences and laughed out of the place. It was crazy. The butterfly effect stated a butterfly could flap its wings on one side of the world and set molecules of air in motion that moved other molecules of air that then moved other molecules, that somewhere along the line actually created weather patterns on the other side of the world. It was crazy. But it was interesting. And because it was so interesting, it hung around forever in myth and urban legend and comic books and bad movies until finally, physics professors in the 90s proved the butterfly effect was accurate and viable, and it worked every time. And not just butterflies. It worked with any form of moving matter, including people. They gave it the status of a law. And in the scientific community today, the butterfly effect is known as the law of sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. And it works every time. I was actually in a hotel room a few years ago, and I was ironing a left sleeve white shirt, getting ready to go talk to some people, and I was hurrying. The TV had been on when I went into the room. I never even touched it, and it was Friday night. I know it was a Friday night because ABC News was on, and they were doing that Person of the Week thing, which they do every Friday night. They have for years, where they'll talk about somebody and how great they were and give them the Person of the Week award. Okay, so I'm barely listening, but I hear the guy saying, "So the Person of the Week for," and he gave the date. He said, "is Norman Borlaug." Man, when he said Norman Borlaug, I put the iron down. My jaw is around my knees. I'm up there. I can't believe Norman Borlaug. I didn't know the dude was still alive. I knew who he was. Now, he just died a couple of years ago. Actually, in Dallas. Died a couple of years ago, 96 when he died. But I knew who he was because I'd written a book and I'd gone down some rabbit trails and figured out this stuff, and I found this guy. It was Norman Borlaug. In the 1930s, he hybridized corn and wheat for arid climates. And they had determined over the years, through the decades, across the world, they calculated that this guy's work had saved the lives from famine of over 2 billion people. The guy saved 2 billion lives. And for that, he was Person of the Week. Which I'm sitting there yelling at the television, because I knew it wasn't Norman Borlaug who really saved the 2 billion people. It was a guy named Henry Wallace. Henry Wallace was the Vice President of the United States under Roosevelt. A lot of people think, whoa, what about Truman? Well, Truman, yeah, he was the last Vice President. But curiously, remember Roosevelt was elected 4 times. That was before presidential term limits. And he actually had 3 different Vice Presidents. Isn't that odd? Truman was the last one. But the middle one was the former Secretary of Agriculture a man named Henry Wallace, who, while he was Vice President of the United States, used the power of that office to create a station in Mexico whose sole purpose was to figure out how to hybridize corn and wheat for arid climates. And he hired a young man named Norman Borlaug to run it. And Norman Borlaug got the Nobel Prize. And Norman Borlaug got Person of the Week. But when you think about it, it was Henry Wallace who saved the 2 billion people. Really. Really. Unless it would have been George Washington Carver. You remember Carver, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
The peanut stuff. See, one of the things people don't know about Carver is when he was 19 years old, a student at Iowa State University had a dairy sciences professor who on Saturday and Sunday afternoon would allow his 6-year-old boy to go on botanical expeditions with this brilliant student. And George Washington Carver was his babysitter, basically. It was George Washington Carver who took this 6-year-old and pointed his life in a direction. It was George Washington Carver who took this 6-year-old Henry Wallace, long before he ever thought about being Vice President of the United States, and put a vision in his life about plants and what they could do for humanity. It's amazing. And think about George Washington Carver, all those years flapping those butterfly wings, that peanut. 266 things he developed from the peanut that we still use today. For years, he flapped his wings with the sweet potato. 88 things he developed from the sweet potato that we still use today. And while nobody was looking, he took a couple of weekends with a 6-year-old, flapped his wings with a little boy, and just happened to save the lives of 2 billion people. So when you think about it, Carver should have been Person of the Week. Unless maybe it would have been the farmer from Diamond, Missouri. A man named Moses lived in a slave state, but he didn't believe in slavery. So this was a problem for these psychopaths like Quantrill's raiders who would come through farms and villages at night, burning and destroying. And one night, January night, Quantrill's raiders came through Moses' farm. They burned the barn, they shot several people, and they drug off a lady named Mary Washington, who refused to let go of her infant son, George. Now, Moses was probably like me, crazy, ADD. He had a wife who was very, very focused, very organized. And Susan immediately got to work and sending messages out in messengers, trying to create a meeting with Quantrill's raiders, trying to figure out a way to get Mary and that baby back. And 2 days later, she had that meeting set and sent her husband on a black horse to a crossroads in Kansas where in the middle of the night, he met 4 of Quantrill's raiders. They showed up on horseback, carrying torches, flour sacks over the head, the eye holes cut out. And there he traded the last horse they had left on that farm for what they threw him in a burlap sack. And as he caught it and they thundered off, he went to the ground. And there in that darkness, with his breath coming out against that cold black night, he pulled out of that burlap sack this cold, naked, almost dead baby boy. And he jerked open his coat and his shirts and he put the baby in next to his skin. He covered that baby up and he walked that baby out. And all the way home. And the next afternoon when he stumbled through the door and gave that child to his wife, they went to the fireplace and began to massage his arms and legs, trying to get him breathing, crying, trying to get his circulation going. And they prayed over that baby. And they told God right then that if God would let that baby live, they would raise that baby as if he were their own. And they told that baby right then, they would educate him to honor his mother, who they knew was already dead. And that was the moment they gave that baby their name. And that's how Moses and Susan Carver came to raise that little baby, George Washington. So, when you think about it, maybe a farmer's wife from Diamond, Missouri, who saved the 2 billion people. Unless, I mean, how far back can we go, really? Right? How far back can we go to show whose move at what time really was the move that saved 2 billion people, a number that continues to increase while we sit here? How far back can we go? And how far forward can we go in your life? How far forward can we go to show the difference you will make by the actions you take or don't take? Because everything you do matters, and everything you don't do matters just as much. You understand, right? There's generations yet unborn whose very lives will be shifted and shaped by what you decide here and do tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next. Because everything you do. Now, listen, last thing I want to tell you, I'm not just hoping you do great things with your life. I am expecting it. Because everything you do matters not just to you or your family or your business. Everything you do matters to me in Orange Beach, Alabama. Because everything you do shapes the world my boys have to grow up in. We are in this together. Let's do great things.